This story's from a time I was 12 years old. My French teacher in school had asked me yet again if I'd brought in the French exercise book that I was required to have. Once again, I said no to her. As it was the third time, she asked me to go to Liverpool and go to Waterstones to buy one. So, later that day, after school, I jumped on the train to Liverpool and went to Central Station, Liverpool. I exited the station, walking up the ramp that comes out onto Bold Street. It was the first time I'd gone to Liverpool on my own. As I exited the station, I thought, I'll just have a look around for a moment, take in the view, the shops, etc. It was fairly busy. Quite a few people were walking up and down Bold Street. Then, as I turned my head from right to left, I realised that everyone was wearing an old style of clothing, like it was 1910 or something similar. I thought to myself, maybe there's something going on here today, and people are dressing up. I could see a group of lads hanging around outside one of the shops, all of them wearing clothing from the turn of the century, including their caps and their long socks. How authentic, I thought. I turned my head again and saw a gentleman walking down the street. He was wearing a nice suit and what looked like a top hat. As he walked, I saw him take a pocket watch out from his pocket and check the time, and then put it back in his waistcoat. I thought, he's smartly dressed. I turned my head again and saw a similarly dressed man walking up Bold Street about 50 metres away from me, and then I could see a shop worker or owner coming out of one of the shops on the opposite side of the road with a bucket. He then threw the water out from the bucket onto the road. Again, he had clothes of about the 1910s on, and he also wore this full-length leather apron. It was then I turned my head again, and about 7 metres away from me, a gentleman, again in a suit with a top hat, was walking towards me. He was walking arm in arm with a pretty lady in a light blue dress and a small hat of the same colour. She also had a matching umbrella over her left shoulder. As they were walking towards me and only a few metres away from me, I decided to talk to them. I asked, "Is there something going on here today? A festival or something?" They both looked at me, and then at each other, and then back to me, and then the gentleman, in quite a posh voice, said, "I beg your pardon." There wasn't any Scouse accent in his voice whatsoever, which surprised me. The lady then looked at me up and down, and then looked away, raising her eyes, in disgust almost, and they then marched on past me. I turned my head again and could see a horse and cart. It looked like they were delivering to one of the shops, but it wasn't there a minute before, and I never heard them moving. I would have heard the horse's hooves on the cobbled road, surely. Hold on, cobbled road? The road was cobbled? Because I hadn't been there before, I didn't know if it was cobbled or not. But I was now realising what I thought was going on. Whilst looking up and down Bold Street in either direction, I was thinking to myself, is this one of those travelling in time situations you sometimes hear about? Whoa, maybe it was. I was amazed. By now I was taking in as much detail as I could. I was buzzing. I couldn't see the group of lads hanging around the shop now either. I did see the lady and gentleman that just passed me go into a clothes shop, but it wasn't a modern clothes shop, it was like a high-class boutique. I turned back around again, still trying to take in as much as I could. I decided to start walking now. I took about 2 or 3 steps, and then all of a sudden everything went back to modern times. Bold Street was modern again. The road wasn't cobbled, the people were walking in modern clothes, and the shops had changed. The man before with the bucket, I thought he came out of a butcher's shop. As I walked down a bit, I could see it. It clearly wasn't a butcher's shop now. It was an independent clothes shop. There was a blonde lady outside having a cigarette. She was about 5'7", neck-length blonde hair, and she said to me, "Are you all right, love? You look a bit lost." I said to her, "Did there used to be a butcher's shop here?" She said, "Years ago, yeah, I believe there was one. Yeah, why?" I said to her, "This is my first time here. I've just come out the station and everything changed, like it was in the olden days." She said, "What, like you time travelled?" She then called a friend over who was about 3 meters away from her, but just inside the clothes shop by the till. She told her what I said. The woman just inside the shop stepped forward to the threshold of the door and said, "You're not the first one that said that." I replied, "Yeah." The other lady then said, "Was it good?" To which I said, "Whoa, yeah." She then said, "Oh, nothing like that ever happens to me." With a bit of a smile on my face, I said, "See ya," and carried on walking down Bold Street. Now, the story doesn't finish there. So, I'm walking down Bold Street knowing I've got to go to Waterstones bookshop to get this French book. Still buzzing with what happened, I was looking for the bookshop. I saw it from some distance away and carried on walking towards it and got to the shop, and I could see inside all the books there, and so decided to go inside. Except when I went inside, it wasn't a bookshop. It was definitely not a bookshop. It was full of a lot of junk and other bits and bobs for sale, and dusty, really dusty. It was the level of dust that made me want to get out of there, so I did. As I exited the shop, I took a couple of paces, glad to be out of that dusty, dirty shop, and I looked back. It was Waterstones again. I really couldn't believe what was happening. First when I'd come out the station, and now at Waterstones. I couldn't believe what had happened. I took a few more steps away from the shop. I wanted to look at all the building. As I looked up to the window on the next floor, I saw the red face of a devil, and he was smiling at me. He realised I'd seen him and moved quickly away from the window. I kept looking, and he popped his head around again and then moved back out the way again, out of sight. Now, I had previously heard a few stories about this red devil face that gets seen at different locations in Liverpool. That didn't worry me. So I decided to go home, back on the train. I didn't get the French book, which was the whole reason for the journey to Liverpool. My French teacher was gonna kill me. What an afternoon I'd had. Now, I'd like to say that is the end of the story, but it's not quite yet. Now, when I was writing this story in my notebook, as I usually do, I was aware of this female spirit there, watching me, smiling at me. Now, she was about 5'7", and I could tell she had this light-coloured hair down to her neck. And she didn't say much, she wouldn't answer me, but whenever I asked her a question, she just kept saying, "You'll see, you'll see." That's all I got from her. Now, I wrote it in my notebook, and then went and got on and did other things. I came back a few weeks later and thought, right, time to record. I looked in my notebook, and there was nothing there. Now, I know I wrote 10 pages or thereabouts. I know which story was before it, which story was after it. But it just wasn't there. There were blank pages. Now, she was stood there saying, "You'll see," with a smirk on her face. Was this the Liverpool humour and her way of a little joke? Now, when I saw her, that was 35 years ago. and I guessed at the time she was about 50, so I'm guessing she passed on. And I fully believed that was her there, having a little joke at my expense. Makes you think, doesn't it? Thanks for watching. My name's Scott Spirit. If you'd like a psychic or a tarot reading, come and see me at timepsychics.com. If you can support me on Patreon, that would be excellent and really appreciated. And on a final note, I'll say to you, may the good spirits be with you and guide you on your journey and take you under their wings when you do so need. All the best. Take care.